I know I'm just as anxious to talk about this episode as you are, so let's skip all the pleasantries and jump right into Change Your Mind, the 1-hour Season 5 finale of Steven Universe. The episode opens with Steven still in Diamond Jail. Blue comes in and confronts him over what he's done. He begins to insist that what he did isn't wrong, but then Blue starts talking about some organics that he brought back from some colony somewhere, and plucks this glowworm-looking dude out of her hair, indicating to us and to Steven at the same time that this is a dream sequence. He's having another pink diamond memory. This scene right here and the subsequent scene where he wakes up and Blue likewise comes into the room and confronts him over fusing with Connie proves that Pink used to do this all the time, that Rose used to do this all the time. And Blue expects that now that Steven's been in here festering for a while, and it's been a while, it's been at least a couple of days, because Connie worries about him being too dehydrated when Blue starts to make him cry. Blue just kind of assumes that he'll be ready to apologize and move on with his life, because I guess that's what Pink always did. But where, back then at least, before she chose to become Rose Quartz, Pink believed that this system was right, and therefore it was right to lock her away when she did something so far out of the norm. Steven knows that this isn't right. In fact, the exact terminology that he uses is that this isn't normal. Blue Diamond is confronting him, telling him not to step out of line, that it's wrong to show any individualistic behavior, literally forcing him to feel bad about what he did, or at the very least show the physiological signs of feeling bad about what he did. It comes off very much like a parent or an older sibling guardian attempting to guilt a child into feeling like they've done something wrong, attempting to reinforce what is effectively emotional abuse. And so Steven's declaration that this isn't normal is particularly powerful, because he's, in a way, saying that this sort of victimization, this sort of emotional abuse, isn't normal, or at the very least, it shouldn't be normal, even though it is, unfortunately, for some people. And it helps Blue to finally realize that Pink wasn't meant for this place, that she was never going to fit in a place like this, and because she still thinks that Steven is Pink, she agrees to help him and Connie escape. First, she gets them some food, then a change of clothes, and then attempts to help them to recover the bubbled crystal gems from Yellow Diamond's palace, and then get them to Steven's legs so that he can fly away. This is, however, when the clash between Blue and Yellow that we saw in the trailer happens. Yellow is waiting for her there, and we get some really fantastic dialogue between the two of them as they come to conflict. They confirm through their dialogue that what they're actually worried about is White Diamond and what she thinks and what she would do to them. That they both know that the gems beneath them suffer, and that they both suffer in silence because of it, because they don't think they can stand up to White and change her mind. And when Steven finally chimes in and shares another of his pearls of wisdom with Yellow, we get one of the simplest and most poignant dialogue exchanges in this entire show.
Stop it, Blue. Stop using your power on me.
I'm not.
And just like that, it's like a dam burst, and Yellow is with them as well. We get confirmation that the crystal gems are probably ready to come out of their gemstones. It's just they can't yet, because Yellow's beam basically stunned them. Which is unfortunate, because as they near Steven's legs, White Diamond's head takes off, docks with them, and takes control of them, and they are confronted by White Diamond's pearl. White Diamond is aware of the attempted escape and doesn't intend to let Steven leave. White Diamond's headship opens its eyes, it looks like it's about to attack, and then suddenly a miracle happens. Just as it looks like the two diamonds, Steven and Connie, are going to have to stand up to this giant robot entirely on their own, a miracle happens, and Blue and Yellow's arms appear out of hyperspace and engage the giant robot in a giant mecha battle, knocking it down, and then revealing themselves to be piloted by Bismuth and the backup crystal gems, Lapis and Peridot, who have their new designs, and they look absolutely fantastic. It looks like Peridot, in particular, took a lot of inspiration from her fellow crystal gems. Her new visor looks like it was inspired by Garnet's visor, and her outfit overall looks like it was inspired by Amethyst. She put her main star right where Amethyst's gem is, and she put stars on her knees, like Amethyst tends to do as well. And seeing Steven interact with these gems who seem so far below them just reinforces for the diamonds that he was never going to be happy here, that neither he nor Pink were ever going to be happy here long term, that living under this society, under the rules of this society, must have been torture. Completely forgetting that they just had a breakthrough where they admitted that it's torture for them, too. And so, because Wyat's giant mech isn't out of commission yet, they decide that they're going to stay behind and hold her off while Steven escapes in one of their ships. A plan that we know would not have worked, based on what we get in just a couple of minutes, but that's beside the point. We know for a fact that they've been punished, most likely by White Diamond before, via bubbling, which means they're willing to make that sacrifice. They're willing to allow themselves to be punished in this way again, if it means letting Steven escape. And earlier on in the show, 2 years ago, a year ago maybe, even, Steven might have just left. That might have been the end of it. But he's grown so much since then. He decides to take a stand, but not the kind of stand that his mother would have made, because he doesn't want to sequester himself away from these people. He doesn't want to fight them either. He wants to change their minds. And riding high off the fact that he has changed the minds of 2 out of 3 of them already, he figures he might as well try for a home run. He figures that if he can get into White's head and talk to her directly, actually carrying on a conversation with her, maybe he can change things. Maybe he can bring her around too. And this show of solidarity, I guess, speaks to Blue and Yellow Diamond because they agree to help. They take remote control of their hand ships and merge them with the giant mech in order to hold it in place so that Steven can try to get up to White's head and talk to her. And he even encourages them to speak as well, and they speak their issues to White, seemingly for the first time ever, really. But she doesn't listen, zaps them with a white beam, and transforms them into extensions of herself, just like her Pearl. Now she has control of 3 of the 4 ships, and therefore the entirety of this mech. And what's even worse is Steven drops the 4 crystal gems as gemstones into one of Homeworld's many bottomless pits, and jumps after them to try to save them. Don't really know how he expected to be able to do that, but okay. And he discovers, when he grabs hold of Amethyst, that he's able to bring them out despite Yellow Diamond's powers by initiating fusion. He becomes Smoky Quartz along with Amethyst, and yes, that does mean that one by one he fuses first with Pearl into Rainbow Quartz 2.0, and then with Garnet into Sunstone. And despite the fact that Sunstone is powerful enough to toss the entire mech back at least a small distance, she's still not enough to get Steven back to the head of this monstrosity. So, for the first time ever, finally, after 5 seasons of this show, the original crystal gems, that is original in the context of the show itself, not in the war overall, fuse on screen, fusion dance, and all, into the Crystal Temple gem, Obsidian. And surprise, surprise, she's able to transform all of their weapons into a giant sword. And while she's not as big as the mech, she is comparably powerful, so between her and some interference from the B team, they are able to get to the head, and the original 4 crystal gems make it into White Diamond's chamber to confront her. She still doesn't listen, though, going on and on about the impurities in gems, speaking of them as if they are already extensions of herself, and she just has to remove the impurities from them to transform them into extensions of herself fully. Which may explain why the Gempire is so conquest-driven. She feels like she needs to extend her light throughout the entire universe. She has some compulsion to do this, and so by creating lesser gems, she feels that she is accomplishing that, even if some of them are less pure than she'd like them to be. At the very least, these extensions of her will are out there doing her bidding, filling the universe with her. And when she sees these impure, flawed gems standing with who she still perceives as Pink Diamond, attempting to make some point to her, White Diamond, at least in her own mind, flawless being, she thinks it's funny, and then she zaps them one by one, transforming them into extensions of her will as well. And it's such a creepy scene, because not only are Blue and Yellow standing there with her, speaking with her voice, talking about their own flaws as if someone else is controlling them, because White Diamond is controlling them. She's using them like puppets. But the crystal gems, these characters who we've gotten to know over the last 5 seasons and even more years, because Cartoon Network sucks at scheduling shows right, they are under her control as well, moving around in these unnatural ways and speaking with her voice. It's just so freaky weird. And White starts talking about their flaws as well, their character flaws, things that they have worked on and made great strides towards overcoming as the series has progressed. And it's unclear whether or not she knew about these things before she extended herself into them, or if she was able to I don't know, read their minds and learn about them ahead of time, but she's not that far off. The thing is, and we get a better hint of this in a second, it almost sounds like she could be talking about herself, because again, it seems like she thinks that these other gems are extensions of her own being, even if they're not technically extensions of her own being, even if that's just some misconception that she has, she at least thinks that they are. She speaks about blue and yellow and pink as if she created them, specifically to attempt to remove impurities from herself. So when she starts talking about how the crystal gems are dependent or obsessive or whatever, she almost sounds like she's talking about things that she wishes weren't present in herself. And this gets even more obvious when, still addressing him as Pink Diamond, she tells Steven that she understands why he wants to surround himself with all of these flawed gems, because it makes him feel better about himself. But isn't that what she's doing? Creating all of these other gems to serve her? Isn't that exactly what she's doing? Creating all of these beings to elevate her to the level of some god emperor thing? She's projecting. She's very clearly projecting. She is an abusive parent projecting her own insecurities onto her children. Not literally, of course, but still very, very nearly literally. And then treating them badly, suppressing their true natures as a means of suppressing the things that she feels are flawed in herself in a very literal manner. She and the relationship that she has with all of the gems that she created, either directly in the case of the other diamonds or indirectly through them, it's an abusive parent-child relationship given physical form, which follows in the themes that were established earlier. Once again, Steven is very clear that this is not normal. This is not how relationships are supposed to be. It's very poignant, because there are some people who live in situations like this, and who knows, maybe it would help them to see this. Maybe it would help them to hear someone screaming from the rooftops that relationship dynamics like this one are not healthy. Connie shows up soon after this. She was able to climb the giant mech and reach the head using the new sword that Bismuth pulled out of Hammerspace for her earlier on in the episode. Like, not literally, obviously. Bismuth made it for her, but where was she keeping that? I don't understand. But really, she's not able to do much. She's up against the crystal gems and the diamonds. So when White decides that it's time for Pink Diamond to come out of that silly human body she's been occupying and rips Steven's gem out of his stomach, there's nothing that Connie can really do except run to what I imagine at this point is quickly becoming Steven's corpse and do her best to help him. Meanwhile, the show engages in the fake out of all fake outs when, through a weird split screen, like a weird vertical split screen, we see the gem that was removed from Steven start to reform into what looks like Pink Diamond, but then it cycles through its various forms just like any gem would when it's reforming, settling on the form of Steven. And it doesn't look right. It looks very monochrome pink. It doesn't have any variation to its design at all, and it becomes very obvious very quickly when it starts to look at the other Steven, at the human Steven, through the other half of that split screen, that it is still Steven, that Steven is now occupying two places at once. Two places bound by one mind. The half of Steven which is in possession of his gem is the embodiment of that gem side, all of the raw power, all of the raw drive, and nothing else. Whereas all the humanity, all of the human aspects of Steven are, of course, still in the human half of him, which is too weak to even stand on its own without the gem half present. Each of them is missing something. Gem Steven is missing the emotions that the human side brings to the table, whereas human Steven, like I said, is injured without his other half. And they seem desperate to reunite with each other, moving in tandem, attempting to reunite in the center of the room. And White Diamond attempts to intercede. She demands that Pink Diamond return, that she turn back into herself, only for Gem Steven to declare in one of the most chilling moments in the entire series, and I say that keeping in mind that this entire scene has been ridiculously terrifying, that Pink Diamond is gone. Rose is gone. They're just Steven now. He is just Steven now. The two halves of Steven reunite, and in the absolute best moment of animation in this entire series, they fuse back together into one in what is a very stunningly beautiful visual representation of self-love. But also, as it happens, a very visual representation of the fact that Steven isn't Pink Diamond, one that even other gems can immediately understand. Now White Diamond gets it. Maybe she doesn't understand exactly what Steven is yet, but she at least understands that he's not Pink Diamond. And between that and Steven delivering the sickest comeback since the unaired pilot episode.
You're just acting like a child! I am a child. What's your excuse?
He actually manages to make a connection with her and, as she puts it, share some of his flaws with her. And I have some ideas about what exactly this was, whether or not he used some power to make a connection with her or just made a connection with her in the good old-fashioned human way. But I'll talk about all of that later. Point is, he does connect with her. And it's through this connection that he at least opens her eyes to the possibility that maybe the very way that they've been building their society is flawed. And even once she releases all of the gems that she's been controlling to reconsolidate her light within her physical form, freeing even Pink Diamond's original pearl while she's at it, Steven is able to convince her that she needs to give his way a chance, and that the first step in doing that is coming out of her own head, the giant head spaceship. Obviously, not her literal head. And from there, he's able to convince her to come back to Earth with him to cure the corrupted gems. They actually land in the midst of a Sadie Killer and the Suspects concert where she's performing a cover of Let Me Drive My Van Into Your Heart, which was fantastic. And then, immediately afterwards, Lars finally gets back to Earth and he and Sadie reunite, and it is beautiful. And then Steven takes White and Blue and Yellow, and they cure the corrupted gems. They're all cured. They're back. Including Jasper, who has no idea what the hell's going on, and her reaction to the whole thing is just absolutely priceless. And it's clear that it isn't entirely over. The war may finally be over, and that is something to be celebrated, but the story itself is not. We still have all of these characters to get to know. There are still more stories to be told. The corrupted gems still bear the marks of their corruption. They will always be affected by that, and it's a very visual reminder that what White and the other diamonds have done has left its mark on Homeworld and its people. They are going to have to find some way to fix that and make amends for that, and I imagine we're going to get a lot of that in upcoming episodes, because there are going to be more episodes of this show. There's the movie this fall, and then we have at least one more season to go after that. And I know I said that I didn't expect White Diamond to come around at all, and so you guys are probably expecting me to be upset by the fact that she came around so quickly, but I'm honestly not. And there's two major reasons for that. First of all, like I've been hinting, if not outright stating throughout this entire review, the writing in this episode has made it very clear that the relationship between White Diamond and the other diamonds and the gems beneath all of them is meant to be analogous to the relationship between an abused child and an abusive parent. And while it may seem a little backwards to allow the abusive parent redemption, it says to an abusive parent, an emotionally abusive parent specifically, I do think this is supposed to be a parallel to emotional abuse rather than physical abuse, that maybe, just maybe, if you're able to open up to the possibility that what you're doing is wrong, recognize the insecurities which have led to your behavior, and then commit to making a change, commit to living your life differently from that point forward, you can make things better for yourself and the people you've harmed. So from purely a thematic perspective, I think this is honestly the best way it could have gone, because not only does it teach kids, not only does it show kids that being in an abusive relationship isn't normal, but it might give parents that little extra push to make a change. And the little denouement where the diamonds are hanging out with everybody and they seem at the very least cool with each other, maybe not friends yet, but at the very least at peace with each other, shows that despite the fact that that trauma is always going to be a part of you, you can move past it. And that's a very powerful message. But I feel that this works even from a lore perspective as well. One of my all-time favorite things about this episode is always going to be the fact that they make it very clear throughout the lore that we get, especially at the beginning of this episode, that Steven didn't do this alone. And no, I'm not talking about the other crystal gems. He had the help of his mother. It's clear that Rose laid the groundwork for what Steven accomplished in this episode. That her close bond with Blue and Yellow had already caused them to waver on Homeworld's policies. And I'd bet that White Diamond sequestering herself away inside her headship was entirely an attempt to prevent herself from being affected in that same way by Pink Diamond's behavior. That just like this episode makes it clear that Blue and Yellow understood that what they were doing to the gems under them was wrong, White Diamond recognized it as well, but was even more desperate than they were to pretend like it wasn't true. Pile on top of that, the very visual representation of the fact that Steven is not Pink Diamond, that Pink Diamond is gone, no matter how much White doesn't want it to be true, and there are just enough chips in her facade for Steven to find a crack to make his way in and change her mind. It does feel a little rushed, but honestly, I don't know how else they would have gone about this. They were never going to give us multiple episodes of Steven interacting with White Diamond, attempting to convince her that what she's doing is wrong. As I've said before, the crew doesn't like stretching this stuff out over more than one episode. They'll build up to it over multiple episodes, but they don't like resolving something like this over the course of more than one episode. That's why this episode was so long, to give them enough time to actually go about this. This is by far the best version of this story that I think we possibly could have gotten, and I like it a lot. It was a little fan servicey, seeing Steven fuse with the crystal gems that he hadn't fused with yet, out of the original 4, at least. I still want to see him fuse with Lapis, Peridot, and Bismuth. And then finally getting to see the temple fusion for real this time. Not just as a shadow puppet, not just as a drawing in one of Ronaldo's silly meta books, but as an actual character in the show. It felt kind of fan servicey, but I'm not going to lie and say I didn't enjoy it. This episode also confirmed a whole lot of stuff that we've been suspecting about the way that Homeworld operates and about the diamonds for a very long time. It finally put the whole Rose is still alive in Steven's gem theory to bed, and I could not be more thankful for that. It was overall a really solid season finale that felt like it could have been the series finale. Honestly, if this were the end of the show, if we were left to imagine how Homeworld will improve and how the diamonds will change over time for ourselves, I'd be content with that. But it's obvious that the crew isn't. They still want to tell us that story, and so they're going to. Some people are calling this the absolute best episode of the entire show. I'm not sure that I agree with that. I still think I like Mindful Education just a tad more, looking at this objectively, taking a step back from it. But it's definitely really good. It's probably the best season finale we've ever gotten, at the very least. It's kind of weird, with the exception of a couple of things which I do plan to make videos about. The main thing that I feel coming away from this episode is satisfied. And there's of course more that I could talk about here. I could talk about how the action was absolutely fantastic. I could talk once again about that fantastic animation sequence where the two halves of Steven reunited with each other. Like, seriously, go watch that again and really take it in, and then go look up who animated that particular scene, and then look up what else they've done. You'll be pleasantly surprised. I could talk about the Crystal Gems' new designs, like Pearl's neat, poofy shouldered 70s businesswoman jacket that just, it looks so good on her. Or Garnet's new shades, or Amethyst's new shirt with the neat triangular shaped cutout over her gemstone. And her outfit overall looks like it was inspired by Amethyst. She put her main star right where Amethyst's gem is. I wonder what that's about. I could talk about the new fusions and their personalities, and I will at some point. I just don't want to bog down this review with talk of that, but I loved them both. I say both because Obsidian didn't really have much of a personality. I think Sunstone was my favorite. Sunstone is like every cool dude 90s character rolled into that sunglasses sun emoji. I could talk about all of that, but I don't need to. Just go watch the episode if you haven't seen it yet. If you haven't seen it yet, I don't know why you're here. I don't know why you're watching this first. Don't do that. But, as per usual, if you have seen the episode, I'd like to know, what did you think of it? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been HA22, and I will talk to you later.
I'm working on that part. At least I've got a van. So let me drive my van into your heart. Let Let me drive my van into your heart. Let me drive my van into your heart. Let me drive my van into your heart.